This show is being sponsored by the National Cooperative Bank, NCB. NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide through the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. More information on the power of community ownership in action can be found at ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. And now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Everything Cooperative. My name is Vernon Oakes, and we're going to talk to you about cooperatives this morning. We're glad that you're on. We're glad that you're listening. We're glad that you're having a wonderful day. This is a beautiful Thursday morning. Sun's up. We're up. Everything is great. And today we're going to have Ruthie Wilder on the phone with us again. This is her second time on the program. She is out of Baltimore, Maryland. Good morning, Ruthie.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I am blessed to be here.
All right. There's two of us.
And yourself?
I'm great.
Wonderful.
You know, we're going to talk about cooperatives is what this program is all about. And a cooperative is any business whatsoever can be a cooperative. There's two basic forms. There's several different types of co-ops, but the main two is based on ownership. If the business is owned by the employees, then it's called a worker co-op. But if the business is owned by the people that use the products or services, then it's called a consumer co-op. And Ruthie's here this morning talking about housing co-ops and the housing co-op that what's the name of your co-op again, Ruthie?
Reservoir Hill Mutual Homes in Baltimore, Maryland.
And how many units?
We have 153 units.
So your co-op is owned by 153 people that live there and reside, and they are members, owners.
Yes.
And I remember you have a $1.8 million budget a year?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a $1.8 million business that you and a board of directors run. You're the president of the co-op?
Yes, I am.
And just to bring people back up, the co-op is 153 members, and that 153 members come together annually to elect the board of directors?
Yes, we have an election coming up in October, our annual meeting.
Okay. And that 153 members will elect how many members on your board?
Right now we have 2 vacancies.
Well, how many total members?
7 board of directors.
Okay, so you have 7 board of directors at 153 members, and all 7 board of directors have to be members of the co-op.
Exactly.
And then you guys operate, you make decisions, you make policies, you run the business.
We do exactly what you just said.
Okay. Fantastic. This program has been brought to you by the National Cooperative Bank. The National Cooperative Bank mission is to help cooperatives grow by supporting and being an advocate for American cooperatives and their members, placing special emphasis on serving the needs of communities that are economically challenged. Mm-hmm. So the NCB was formed in 1982 by act of Congress. So they have over 184. No, they had $4 billion in capitalization. They started out with 184 million. Over $4 billion. So, Ruthie, how are things going in your co-op?
Everything is going pretty good. I really don't have any real complaints. You know, you have your daily, issues that come up and all. And Tuesday night we had National Night Out, and we combined our Back to School giveaway. Which you know about National Night Out. Well, hopefully most people out there know about it. It's crime prevention night across the nation. And we get out and we grill, and, everything is free. We had DJ and a band. We had a marching group and all. Politicians come out, and speak with the community and all. And we had health wagon. We had Baltimore City Sheriff's Department come out and give out information in reference to violence in reference to violence, domestic violence and any other crimes that, may occur. We also had Baltimore City Police donate to us, hamburgers, hot dogs, and sodas and waters. We had the fire department come out, and kids could get on the truck and look at the fire truck. This is a part of doing things for the community. The co-op does, to keep that camaraderie going.
Fantastic. And so how much participation do you think you all had from your 153 members?
You always want more participation, but we had quite a few members. I don't have the totals. As a matter of fact, we are getting our paperwork together for our report. But we had a lot of members volunteer to help stuff the bags because we gave out 300 book bags with school supplies.
Fantastic.
They came out Sunday, helped stuff the bags and everything, and get that prepared for Tuesday. And then Tuesday they came out, they got on the grill and, helped serve the food and all, and keep the little park that's behind our units clean, along with the staff. So we had quite a bit of participation.
300 book bags.
Yes.
Who paid for that?
We did.
So Reservoir Hill.
We did have a sponsor, our insurance agent from Nationwide. He gave us a donation and all.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to talk about today is how do you solve problems in your cooperative, in your business? What are some of the you talked about daily problems. What are some of the kind of problems that you have that you work with either on a daily basis or any big problems that you have?
For the most part, maybe a leaky pipe, maybe garbage disposal, sometimes lockouts. That's for the most part electrical, like maybe one of our night sensor lights may be out, and someone will call it in, so that we can have that repaired. Because we deal with vendors. But if it's a unit light, outside light, our maintenance staff takes care of that.
Well, do you have any problems with your residents, either paying or following the rules?
Yeah, well, we do have, some members that are delinquent. And with that, what we normally do, the steps we normally take with that is first we'll go through the process of you're late after the 5th. Then we'll, in 5 more days, you are, the 5th you're also filed along with your late charge. Then after the 10th, then you're taken to court. And then you have another court course to be incorporated in that. When we find that a member is starting to be chronically delinquent, we send them a letter. I structured a default letter through our bylaws. I looked through there, through the occupancy agreement, and I wrote that up, and we send that to the members in conjunction with the treasurer, knowing about the default letter and letting them know how they are in default and that their occupancy agreement can be terminated for cause.
So I want to stop you a minute, Ruthie. I want to make sure that people out there understand what bylaws and occupancy agreements are. Can you explain what your bylaws are? Why you have bylaws?
Bylaws govern your property. They're just like the laws, just living laws in your city that you live in. Basically, it tells you what you can do what your what your rights are and the rights of the corporation, and that's Reservoir Hill Mutual Homes. So if I refer to a corporation, I'm talking about our co-op.
Okay, so what we have are laws. We have federal laws, which normally take precedence, and then you have state laws.
Yes.
And then you have Baltimore city laws, and
Exactly.
sometimes you have county laws, and then you have the laws of the corporation or laws of the business.
Right.
And the laws of the business are in the form of bylaws.
Yes. And they govern the property and the members, and let them know what they can and cannot do. Their rights as a member, and also the rights of the corporation to govern and protect our rights in operating the corporation. Once they get the default letter, and if we have to, and they still are delinquent, we make up an appointment for them to come before the board of directors so that they can explain this situation, because sometimes people have extenuating circumstances that we are unaware of. And this way we'll know how to handle this, opposed to just evicting them, whereas in landlord-tenant, most of the time they don't get a chance to do that. They just go ahead and evict the person. But with being a member, you get a little leniency. So we check them out to see, what's going on. Why are you so delinquent, and all, because we still have to pay bills, contrary to anything.
Okay.
So we go from there. And if we find that, it's something that we can work with the person on, then we, try to set up, because we've set up payments for them, so that they can catch up and not be evicted from their unit and all. But we go above and beyond to eliminate the eviction up until the last minute. And this may take like a year, more than that, depending. And once we are satisfied with with the answer they've given us, we send them a letter thanking them for the meeting, and explaining in the letter the agreement that we have come to.
Well, Ruthie, let's hold on there. We'll come back to this after we take a quick break, because if anybody out there would like to call in with a question or a comment to Ruthie or myself, you can call in at 1-800-450-7876. That's 1-800-450-7876. We'll be right back to talk about how you solve problems in the business of a housing co-op. Housing co-ops are owned by the members. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
News updates on the web at WOLDCnews.com.
Welcome back. This is Vernon Oaks. We're talking about cooperatives. We said that a co-op is any kind of business that's owned by the members, which is a worker co-op, or if it's owned by the people that use the products or services, it's called a consumer co-op. And we're talking about a housing co-op, which is a consumer co-op, because the residents of the co-op own the business. And we are talking to Ruthie Wilder this morning from Reservoir Hills in Baltimore, Maryland, which is a 153-unit cooperative. So these 153 members, the people that live there, they elect through a democratic election. They elect the board of directors, which are 7 of them, and then they manage and govern the business. And so right now we're talking about some of the problems of a co-op, and we were talking about what happens when somebody's late. So, Ruthie, what I would like to do right now is talk about a problem-solving model that I developed when I was at Howard, and I've seen others similar to it. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about this eviction process within this model. The problem-solving model has 7 steps to it. Mm-hmm. So if anybody out there has a pen or paper, you might want to write this down. The first part of the first thing that you have to do in solving a problem is define the problem. And that's basically, it has two steps in defining the problems. You figure out what's going on now, and that's called the current situation. In the example that we were talking about, we have a member that's not paying.
Right.
So the current situation is they're not paying. The desired situation is, and in the case that Ruthie was explaining, I got that the desired situation was what she wants to happen is that the person pays up and gets caught up.
Exactly. Because it's financially profitable for you to try to keep the member there opposed to just evicting them if you can avoid it. Primarily because once you evict the person, now you have an empty unit that has to be rehabbed, which is more money. They already left holding money. Mm-hmm. Then while that unit is vacant, you're losing money because you aren't collecting any carrying charges from it. So you're racking up an enormous bill by evicting them opposed to trying to keep them there and getting them caught up. And then plus they may be a very good member, that you really don't want to see leave. And when I say that, a member that's not a problem member, that keeps the property up, never have any problems within the unit, anyone that's in their household or anything. So you want to try to keep these people around and all.
Well, I want to tell you what you went into the second step. Mm-hmm. The second step of problem-solving model that we're talking about is writing down all of your assumptions and your facts.
Yeah.
What do you think or what do you know? And so you just went through, well, you want to keep them because if you let them go, then there's all of these expenses that you have to have, and you don't have the income coming in. Plus, if they're a good member being that they normally pay on time, they don't cause any problems, they may volunteer and are active within the organization, within the corporation, you may want to keep them. So you write down all of the assumptions and facts that you know. And then the third step of this problem-solving model is you write down your alternatives. And the alternatives that you have, and I think you at least should put down 3. And if this is a major, major, major decision, you may have 12 different alternatives. You may brainstorm, when I'm working and solving problems, particularly in groups, I may have a time where we just throw out alternatives, throw out potential solutions to the problems. And those alternatives, always one alternative is to do nothing. Okay, that's not necessarily a good alternative in this example because they'll just stay there, use the water and electricity and gas and whatever else that you have, and they don't pay. So that's not a good alternative for this one. The second alternative is to take them to court. Third alternative would be to bring them in and meet with the board and work up a plan there if it's somebody that you want. So you have 3 alternatives right away. That you could do. And then you could think of what might be a 4th, 5th, 6th alternative. Help them find jobs if that's what the problem is. Whatever it is, then you look at alternatives. So those are the first 3 of a 7-step process. So I want to go back to this one and also bring out the point of one of the reasons I like co-ops is that they are democratically controlled, is voluntary and open memberships, is 2 of the first 2 principles of the modern co-op. But, it's totally run by the members. They have a say. The members say whether or not they want to meet with this person, whether or not they want to work things out with this person. Where in a landlord and tenant example, what Ruthie's already said, too often the member doesn't have that option. They don't have the option to sit down with the landlord or the property manager and say, look, this is my problem and see if we can work this thing out. Because too often in a landlord and tenant case, that owner may not even be in the neighborhood. That owner may not be even around. And all they want is the money. They're not so much concerned about the resident. They're concerned about the money too often.
Exactly.
So, go ahead.
And then remember, the persons that you're talking about, they are members. They're just not tenants. So it does make a little difference They're a 1% shareholder within this corporation. So you should extend them some extra right so that they can try to resolve the situation they are in. You watch your court list and you see who is chronic or someone, and especially someone that you're not normally seeing on your court list, and you're saying, what's going on with them? Why are they on the court list so much now? Before they weren't on here. And so you talk to them. I go a bit further. My vice president told me I shouldn't do it, but I have a thing for human nature. Mm-hmm. And I'll call the member, and I'll talk to them. And I'll say, look, I see you on the list quite a few times. What's going on with you? Even though they still have to go before the board of directors. Just letting them know that, I am paying attention. I'm concerned. I don't want to lose you. So this helps, and also, too, it lets people know that you do have a heart in this business.
You care.
Yes, that you really, really care about their circumstances. So, and it helps. And, most of the time, they'll say, well, they'll tell you what's going on, and, they'll let you know when they're going to, be able to resolve it. And 9 times out of 10, they do resolve it once they give you that commitment. They give you that commitment, and I'm glad of that.
Ruthie, that humanity that you talked about, mm-hmm. It's people working with people, and that's what Chuck Snyder said. He said that a co-op is nothing but people helping people.
Yes.
And that's what you just described here, is that you as the president will also, which is an alternative, you make a telephone call.
Yeah.
You have a one-on-one conversation with the member to try to find out what's going on, what's happening in their life, what's causing them not to take care of their responsibility, pay their fees.
Yes.
And then they'll meet with the board and work something out if you can work it out with them.
Yes.
And like what you said was, when you do this, 9 times out of 10, they resolve their problem.
Yes.
The 1 out of 10 times you may have to resort to the court and you may evict.
Yes.
But if you can get 9 out of 10, if you can get most of the people who get behind, mm-hmm. and too often, particularly in this last economy, 07 and 08, and as a property manager, I lived through this big time, that mm-hmm. a lot of people lost their jobs.
Yeah.
And they did not have money to pay. Yeah. There's another option that some co-ops do, Ruthie, and that is some co-ops have a hardship reserve.
Oh, okay.
And they'll put a hardship reserve together, just like a replacement reserve. And a replacement reserve, for those out there, is money. It's basically, when you talk about reserve, it's talking about savings. Mm-hmm. And savings for replacement reserve is you put money together every month to replace your roof. The roof may not need to be replaced for 10 years, but mm-hmm. you can start saving today, so you'll have whatever it costs 10 years from now. And sometimes we get engineers to estimate what it's going to cost 10 years from now to replace a roof. And you start saving money for that. Or if you have to replace the windows or the hallway, the flooring in the hallway, whatever you have to replace, you save money. So what some co-ops, I've seen 2 or 3 co-ops do, is they put together a savings for hardship. And, they put together the rules on how one may be able to use it. Like if they have a good reason for being behind, like they're sick or they lost their job, and then it may say that they can only, pay 2 months or 3 months of carrying charge, and they cannot use it for 24 months. I mean, you can't go keep dipping in the bucket. And then they have a committee that oversees it and makes the decision. It's not automatic. They have to meet with the hardship committee. Mm-hmm. And they have to say what their case is, and they have their rules and regulations of how they can use the money, and if it fits, they use it, and if it doesn't, then they say no. And if they come back too many times, it could be a no also. But that's another way of people helping people, where everybody pitches in when they pay their fees every month, and some of that's set around for when hardships happen. Mm-hmm. And that has worked very well. I've seen it happen And it works. It works really well. So that might be something you may want to consider if I can be of help to share any of the rules that these hardship committees have put forth. You might want to find that. But that helps people to start looking at savings and personal savings for hardship. Oh, yeah. So, again, if anybody want to call in, you can call in at 1-800-450-7876. This is Vernon Oaks. We're talking about cooperatives and the benefits of them. We'll be right back.
News updates on the web at WOLDCnews.com.
You know, President Obama loves WOL, and so do I, because information is power. Matter of fact, we had a gentleman on the program from Senegal, an African, who said that it's not information that's power. It's when you get information and you put energy, action to the information, then that's where you get the power. Information without action doesn't give you power. But putting the information to work, doing that is what gives you power. And this is why NCB is sponsoring this program, to give you information about cooperatives and how they work. And this is what Ruthie is talking about today, where 153 people come together in this housing co-ops. They elect 7 board members. The board members have the authority to run the business, to govern the business. They set policies, and then they have managers who manage and implement those policies. And in Ruthie's example, they hire site managers, and they hire contractors or maintenance people and maybe cleaning people, and then they run this business. Matter of fact, Ruthie, how many people do you all hire?
We as staff, we have 8 people on staff. We have 3 office personnel and 5 maintenance crew.
You have 3 office personnel and 5 maintenance.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I love about a co-op. You have everyday people running a $1.8 million business. That's everyday people learning. Yes. And the 5th principle of a co-op is education, training, and information. And so Ruthie has had to learn how to run a business. And it sometimes can be frustrating, as I've talked to different presidents and different officers of cooperatives, to run a business, particularly when they don't know how to run it. It can be very frustrating until they learn how to and get the information that they need to run a business. So right now, what we're talking about, the subject for today is problem solving, and we're talking the model, the example of a problem is when somebody doesn't pay. And I said in this model, first is to define a problem or opportunity, and that's to talk about the current situation, what's happening now. And the second part of it is talk about the desired situation. And the difference between the current situation and the desired situation is called the problem. That's what most people call the problem. And I would say enlightened people will call that the opportunity. They will talk about what they really, really want and then how they get there. But also, I find that most people that I have met, I call them 1A people, Ruthie, and that is that they stay on talking about the current situation. Yeah. That they never get past talking about the current situation, and that shows up with complainers. When people will complain and complain and complain about whatever it is, whatever the thing is in any organization, I call them complainers. They never get off of 1A. They never even talk about what do they want. They always talk about what is right now. Right. So they never get a chance to solve the problem. And I really like to talk to people that are, in this example, they're 5, and we'll get to that right now. And that is, the second thing is you talk about your assumptions and your facts, what you think or what you know. Then you write down at least 3 alternatives. And then you analyze those alternatives, and sometimes it's crunching numbers, particularly in the business world. You crunch and figure out which one will give you the biggest bang for your buck, which of the alternatives will likely solve the problem. And number 5 is you make a recommendation when you don't have power, and you make recommendations to the people that have the power that can make change. And if you can, and Ruthie in the board's case, they can make the decision. They can decide with the person that hasn't paid. They can decide Ruthie made the telephone call. That's her decision. The board meet with them. That's the board's decision, and probably their bylaws and their policies. And then they have to decide whether or not they make out a plan with the person or send them to court.
Exactly. And also, too, me talking to the person one-on-one, sometimes people aren't comfortable talking in front of a group of people, but on a one-on-one, you can really make them feel comfortable enough to explain their situation to you. You know, because everyone doesn't want to go and put all their personal business out there, even though we know that something is wrong financially, and that's personal, but they still don't want to, you know, have to sit there and feel like they're in the hot chair, you know, in front of 7 people and just spill their business out, you know. So, you know, that's one of the reasons, too, why I like to be hands-on with people and see what I can do. And then that also, too, before they come in, I can kind of explain it to the board what they're coming in for, and then let the person speak from that point.
What you're talking about is what I have found also is that people are just embarrassed.
Exactly.
And fearful. They don't know what, and so a lot of times people won't come forth. I had a young African American male that was behind about 3 months, and he was getting ready to be evicted. And when I say getting ready, it had gone through the courts. We had the writ for eviction, and the marshals was at his door. Okay? He comes out crying, literally. Young black man, 24, 25 years old. He had not lost his job, but for some reason or another, he wasn't getting paid, is what he was telling me the story. And so I stopped the marshals for a few minutes, went down and talked to the guy. We made an agreement, and there was nobody on the board. This guy had been behind before. Nobody had reached out to him. And we try to tell, in this particular co-op, anytime you have a problem, come talk. Right. And he did not come talk. We did stop the eviction. He is caught up now. It's been about 6 months ago. But there was just, they were so afraid to say, hey, look, I'm behind. I can't do it. Yeah. And then I sat down 3 weeks or so afterwards and explained to him that I had just saved him and his family this is a market rate co-op, about $40,000. See? If he had gotten evicted, he would have lost all of his equity. And I'm hopeful now. As a matter of fact, the board was a little angry at me, and they said if he goes back to court, you're paying. I said I knew that. I knew that when I made the decision, but I did. I was at number 5. I could make the decision. I made the decision. I helped this young man to keep some equity, and I believe he's going to be a much better member now. Yes. And we have Jane on the line. Jane, good morning. Good morning, Jane. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, good morning. I was wondering about if you knew about any garden or people who grow vegetable co-op in the Silver Spring, Maryland area.
I don't, but I can look that up. And one of the places to go to is coopdc.org to look at what's going on. Yeah, www.coopdc.org to look at what's going on. And I do not know of a co-op in Silver Springs, Maryland, that does gardening. But what I will do, if you could look there, and I'll try, James, also to put a question on that to see if we can find out.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for calling, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
So we're at number 5 in our decision, in our problem-solving model, to make a decision when you can. I gave an example of a decision that I made. It looked like it was the right decision for him, for the co-op, for all of the reasons you talked before. If we had evicted him that day, we wouldn't have gotten the money he was behind. We would have had money that we had to pay out. The good news about that, the co-op would have made money though. Because of like I said, the equity is a market rate co-op, so it would have made money. And I explained that to the man. I said, if I was after money, it would have been in my best interest to evict you that day. But we're not after money. We're after helping people. Helping people was the reason for co-ops.
Oh, and too, sometimes, that makes them an even better member. And you may have a volunteer now in your hand, to come aboard, when you're having anything on, with the committees that you form on the property.
Well, when I talked to him about 3 weeks afterwards, I had talked to him about that. We haven't had a meeting since, but I'm expecting to see him at meetings. I'm expecting him to get involved. And I would call that card, say, look, man, I saved you a whole bunch of money. Come on down here. Let's go. And maybe he will become a very, very good member.
Exactly. Tie their hands. Yeah, that sounds good to me. And all, because you're never short of volunteers. You're never short of volunteers. And that's another thing, I think people get the wrong perception of volunteers, because if you volunteer and become involved, you'll see exactly how things operate within the corporation. And that should give you the incentive to want to pay your housing charges and, as well, be a part of decision-making, And that's what you're there. You as a member, you do make decisions, on how the corporation is, ran the board, because you try to give the board of directors some advice on, what is going on, your opinion of things as a member, so that they can correct it, improve it, or whatever. So I like that. I like that, what you said about, now, grabbing him and, bringing him along and all. And he probably said, Dad, that's all I had to do was just tell someone.
Yep. That's all he had to do was have the conversation. If he could have come down, it would have said he had to pay the legal fees. He had to pay for, when in D.C., when you evict, you have to have a crew that comes out.
Yes.
And a 2-bedroom crew, I think it's 20 people. So he had to pay that fee, like $400. He had to pay all of the fees associated with that eviction, which he would not have had to done if he had just come and sit down and talk.
Exactly.
And it would have caused us, the office, a lot less work.
Yes.
The sixth step is implementation. After a recommendation is made, after a decision is made, then you get into the implementation stage. And that is decide who's going to do what, when. And that gets to making the change to see if you're going to get that desired situation that you want, whatever you're trying to go. And that is getting, in this example, getting that person to pay. In the example I gave you with that young man, there was instant implementation. I made a decision and told the marshals, y'all can go now. Okay. And then I had to get it straight with the board and get it straight with him. And like I said, he is current now, and he's paid all of those fees.
Yeah.
And so the seventh step is what I just did, is evaluation of the project or persons involved to see if you get the desired situation. In the example that I said, the desired situation was to get him to pay. He's paid up. He's current. I would also like to see what we've talked about, get him involved as a member where he could volunteer. Mm-hmm. And there's another reason for volunteering, and you mentioned it last time we talked to you on the program, is how much you learn.
Yes.
In volunteering, you have an opportunity when you're volunteering, and you just said you can see how the organization operates. You can see how the business is run. You can see how a $1.8 million business is run, and a lot of us in economically depressed neighborhoods don't have that option. We don't get a chance to see firsthand how you run a business.
Exactly.
So it's great knowledge that happens. It's great training.
It is. It really is. It's a lot of training, and that. As I said the last time, you can implement in your everyday living with your personal life. You learn so much, and it's not. I'm not going to say it's not hard running the corporation, but it's not as hard as people think it is. If you're willing to learn and open your mind, and it's just common sense.
Ruthie, I just got a biggie to tell you what I've heard somebody say. Common sense is not common. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you say it's common sense. But that is not common. And we're going to break away again and take another quick break.
Okay.
I'm glad James called in. If anybody else have a question, call in at 1-800-450-7876. We're talking about cooperatives, what makes them run, getting information to make them work. And what Ruthie was saying just now is that once you get the knowledge, running a company can be easy, or it's not as mind-boggling as one thing. We'll be right back.
News updates on the web at WOLDCnews.com.
Hey, welcome back again. This is Vernon Oaks. We're talking about cooperatives, everything cooperative. The National Cooperative Bank has customers that are cooperatives, such as grocery wholesalers. We've had Greenbelt food co-op on the program, purchasing co-ops like farming co-ops, housing co-ops, and Ruthie's representing them today. Other customers of NCB share in the cooperation, the spirit of cooperation, driven by democratically organizing principles. They may be Alaskan, American, or Native American enterprises, which by their very nature are member-run and member-owned. Others may be community health centers or charter schools driven entirely by community needs. What they all have in common is a single fundamental principle. They have joined together cooperatively to meet personal, social, and or business needs. You know, most co-ops are formed to solve some community problem. And from what I have gathered on this program for almost a year now, October will be a year, we started last October, is that most co-ops will provide as good as, if not a better product or service at a competitive, if not lower price. So this is, and what makes the price lower more often than not is there is not a profit motive. And nobody's trying to take money off the cream off the top and take it to another community or another country. And most of the time when somebody learns, like the young man we were talking about earlier, or maybe some of the people in Ruthie's co-op, when they learn how that they own it, they take better care of it. Have you experienced that?
Yes. People, they really take pride in taking care of their unit better. You don't feel, the destruction, that, landlord tenants, a lot of them deal with. I'm not going to say everyone.
I know that's right.
But, but for the most part, I'll go as high as 99%.
Wow.
That the members take care of their units. And that's a big help on the corporation, because the more they take care of their units, the buildings are more visibly attractive. If you have a vacancy, then you know that someone that visits them or whatever may want to come live here because they see the upkeep. And I like that.
But what I found is that once they understand that they own it, they take better care of it. They use less water. They turn off the electricity. They do things to help to lower the cost.
Yes.
Then when you do the budget, they don't have to pay as much.
Exactly.
It ends up going to their pocket. Their savings and the things that they do helps the organization as a whole, and it also trickles down and it helps their household.
Yes.
And it takes a while for people to get that, to understand that everything that they do to keep the cost down within the housing cooperative, within the business, then that means that they don't have to pay as much. That's part of the training that goes, the part of the information that has to go out. That's part of what the board and the management does to make sure that people understand that. Ruthie, we are, as happens here, time goes by very quickly. We only have about 8 more minutes. Do you have another problem that you want to talk through that we can go through this model on that You talked earlier about some of the physical problems. Have you had to replace a roof, or have you had leaking roofs?
Yeah, we had a leak in one of our buildings recently, and we had our maintenance. We always start with our maintenance staff and see if they can repair it first.
Okay, let me stop you a minute. But put in this framework, the current situation, or what was the current situation, is you had water coming into somebody's unit. You had a leak.
Exactly.
And the desired situation is you don't want water coming in. You want to stop it.
Exactly.
Okay, as soon as possible, because water destroys.
Yes, it does. And I mean, and it really destroys if you let it go.
So the second
from the third floor, because our buildings are 3 stories because we have old brownstone buildings, and so that means that leak can come from the third floor all the way down to the basement in the common area, and then we have some units in our basement area. So that's a terrible situation when you have water and it's coming in, and you have to find where that leak is coming from immediately.
So
water does so much damage.
It does.
And as I said, we start with our staff going out to assess the situation. And if they can't remedy it, then we call in an outside roofer.
Well, let me put it in the framework here.
Exactly.
So you define the problem. We did. The assumptions and facts is one is we talked about if you don't fix it, it'll destroy more.
Yes.
But you would get more information by sending your staff out. So the staff goes, they assess it, and they bring back facts. They say, we can fix it. It's blah, blah, blah. Or they say, no, this is too big for us.
Yes.
So then you have to go into alternatives. And one alternative is do nothing, and we know that won't get us to the desired situation. Matter of fact, it'll destroy. So that's not a good alternative at all. The second alternative would be that the staff fix it. The third one is that you can get somebody from the outside. Yeah. Now, and the fourth part of this is analyze the alternatives, and that a lot of times gets to be the cost benefit analysis, which is going to cost you the least and give you the most benefit. And you may not do this in a particular for roof because you've already have experience with your staff. If they go, they assess it, they say we can fix it. You know that's the least cost, so you tell them to fix it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if it's, let's say the roof has to be replaced, what do you do then?
I would send for several roofers for estimates, not only cost, but what their process is in repairing this roof, because that's the most important thing, their process in repairing that roof so that it won't leak again, at least for several years.
Well, when you say you said several roofers, how many?
I would go as much as at least 2 to 3.
Okay.
Or if you want to, and see what each one is offering.
So,
and reputation, look for roofers that may have a good reputation. Now it's easy going online, checking their backgrounds out.
So if you go and you look at your assumptions and your facts, and you say you draw the conclusion it needs to be replaced. Again, I look for a minimum of 3 bids. I want 3 alternatives, and so I look for a minimum of 3. And if it's a roof that costs $100,000, I may get 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. If it's a roof that costs $10,000, I may only get 3. I don't know of any roofs that cost 10 anymore. But anyway, the broader the problem is, the more alternatives I want to have.
Yes.
And then you analyze it, and that's what you went to. The fourth step of this is you analyze your alternatives, and you would look at price, you would look at process, you would get reputation. You'd have a series of things you're going to look for in each of those roofers to make a decision, or if you had a committee, they may make a recommendation to the board. And that's the 5th step. That's pretty much what you all do?
Yes, and bring those estimates back to the board of directors, and you decipher them and decide on who you're going to use. to help you with this problem. And it's important to always, even though I'm president here, it's still always important to talk to your board of directors. I mainly talk to my vice president and my secretary and the treasurer, because they need to be involved in what's going on, and everybody, so someone else knows what's going on as well.
Well, if a co-op works the way it's designed to work, you would have autonomy and independence, which is the fourth one, and so you all are making decisions. You will have volunteer and open members, democratic member control, and you have to have, in this autonomy and independence, to make it work, you have to have a number of people making a decision. If you ever get one person making the decision, it's not a co-op. There's no cooperation. It's more a tyrant, or a king or something like that. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And then the next step is, once the board makes a decision, then you implement, and that's do a contract, say when the contractor, he or she will start, when they expect to finish, how much it's going to cost. You get all, and what's that processing. And if it's like $100,000 roof, I would have intervals where I have somebody up there inspecting. Matter of fact, for most roofs, I'll have, when they tear down a roof, I have somebody inspecting and so forth. And so you're always evaluating the project to see if it's getting you to your desired situation.
Yes.
Ruthie, we only have about a minute and a half left. It goes by very quick. 1 minute left. You have any other quick comments you want to make to the people out there today?
No, it was a pleasure talking to you again as usual. And I look forward to another day we can speak and, talk cooperative.
It'll be my absolute pleasure. And the last time you talked about a building that was vacant there, you want to look at putting a senior citizen or veterans cooperative. And I'd like to work with you, and I would touch bases with you about that.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk bases. Maybe we can get together before the annual conference and have something to present to them on the agenda.
All right, dear. We will
all right.
be checking
off.
off.
Have a great day and weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
And we'll be back next Thursday talking to you about cooperatives. Have a great weekend, great week. Thank you. This is Vernon Oaks signing off.
1450 WOL.